Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Rashbi in the house, Rav Shmuel ben Yehoshua, Rabbi Stephen. And Happy New Year to all of you. Wait, what? Happy New Year? I thought that was like 3 weeks away from now. Isn't Rosh Hashanah on this year at the evening of September 29th, that Sunday? Why is Rabbi Stephen wishing us a Happy New Year now? He wants to get a little early. Actually, it is the New Year. If you remember, we've talked about this before, there are four New Years in Judaism. The fourth New Year actually started last Shabbat. Last Shabbat coincided with the new month of Elul. And Elul is the month before Tishrei, which is the beginning of which starts Rosh Hashanah, which is the first New Year, which is the New Year, the spiritual New Year, when we change the year. And this year, of course, it's going to be 5780. So, what New Year did we just pass? You may remember that we have Tu B'Shvat. That comes typically February, sometimes March, depending on the calendar. Tu B'Shvat is here, the Jewish holiday. Hail the trees, New Year, happy holiday. So that's the New Year for trees. Elul is the New Year for animals. Now, what does that New Year mean? So, if you remember, when you first plant a grove or grain or something, okay, for the first 3 years, you do not touch that plant, that fruit or whatever it is, or the grain. You let it go for 3 years, then in the fourth year it's given to the Kohanim, the priest, and after that it's all yours. That's for flora. Now, for the fauna, for the animals, we count the first fruits, the firstborn. That happens in the month of Elul. So the beginning, the first of the Elul, is to animals, as to B'Shvat, the 15th of the month of Shvat, is to fruit. See, that's the difference. So, and that can be found in the Tractate of Rosh, in the Talmud. It's the first tractate, which starts at number 2, so you can look it up yourself if you like. So, and if you notice, I blew the shofar. Now, there is a special psalm that we say, and it's a psalm for the penitential New Year, and the Siddur Chadash, which is the liberal conservative, kind of an oxymoron, isn't it? But it's the liberal or progressive conservative book. They do that Saturday morning during Pesukei de Zimra, which is the second part of the service, in the Art Scroll, which is the Orthodox. And for me personally, I like to do it at the end of the service, and we blow the shofar, except of course on Shabbat. And we blow it every single day except Shabbat, and that's to waken us up. So this is a month-long lead-in into the new year. See, and that's why we blew it. And if you notice, I didn't do any of the, Tekiah, Shavarim, any of those. We just did a straight blow. That's what it is at the end, and that's to prepare you. So, and we're getting real close to the holidays, folks. So I hope you're as excited as I am. It's my favorite time of the year. It really is. I love it. So let's talk about this week's Torah portion, which is Shoftim. Shoftim v'Shotrim, judges and officers. So if you remember in the last portion, Reah, we had a whole series of commandments, a lot of commandments in that one particular portion. Some of them were new. Now, as the flow goes, we've got the commandments. Now we've got the leaders who are going to embody and enforce and teach to the people. So this portion focuses on the judges and the officers. And Shotrim, by the way, is the word that they use for police in Israel in Hebrew these days. And it also talks about the Kohanim and Levites. Also talks about false prophets, that we don't succumb to the alien prophets of the pagans when we Israelites march into the Holy Land. So that's something to consider as well, and that's why we have those commandments. So now that we have the commandments, now we have the people that are going to be enforcing and adjudicating and interpreting and applying those laws to the masses of the people. So that's a big responsibility. And it is incumbent upon the judges and the officers to know those commandments, to know how they're carried out. Now, If you remember, way back earlier in the Torah, we had one of the first portions, and I believe the portion was Jethro. Jethro shows up to Moses and says, hey, wow, word of what happened with the Egyptians has spread across the land. I just wanted to come up and give you a kind of a high five or a fist bump, whatever they are, a hug, as they did back then, and tell you that was great, and you're God's chosen man, and you're going to lead the chosen people, and that's awesome. And Jethro ends up staying there for what some people feel was about a year, until he left to go back to his family. And at that point, Jethro, some people say, was circumcised into the religion, and now he became Jewish, or an Israelite. So Jethro said to him that you need to have these managers, these lower level managers, that can adjudicate, the division of power, adjudicate the lesser cases, saving the most important cases for you, right? Since you're the prophet, you can decide the real difficult ones. And, there's a difference of opinion. Some people hold Moshe Rabbeinu at fault for kind of sloughing off his responsibility, because as, the prophet talking directly to God, the way you and I would talk or have a phone conversation, he's the one that knows. Other sages, myself included, not that I'm a sage, but, after studying, this is my feeling, this is a good thing for him to have everybody else trained, all these wise men, special men, and this is what it says here. It's kind of a repeat of what was said back in the portion of Jethro, men of great wisdom who can adjudicate, who can decide these cases. Because basically, remember, when I learned karate, I learned, Todd, we were getting together, and he said, by me teaching you, it's going to more enforce me in what I know. And always, the teacher, same thing with meditation, the teacher always gains more than the student, because by teaching, they have to integrate the knowledge, and they have to use the knowledge. They have to know that knowledge so well that they can apply it. All right, so think of what has to happen. And what you're doing is you're helping somebody evolve spiritually by adjudicating these cases and studying the Torah, which is what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be studying and knowing Torah so that they can adjudicate properly. And that's what the whole point of this is. We've learned new commandments. Now we've got the people that are going to learn it and enforce it among the people. So that's a good thing. The fact that you've got more and more teachers, more wise men, okay, more hachamim, wise men, zakanim, the old people. And by the way, the word zaken, which means an old person, also means beard. See, when you get old, see what happens to your beard, nice and white? So that's part of the knowledge. So it also talks, this portion, Shoftim, also talks about the Levites and the Kohanim. So we've got the secular leaders that are deciding the more mundane cases. And now we've got the Kohanim and the Levites, okay, who will receive no portion. Now, it goes on to describe the actual strategy, okay, the actual logistics of the priestly class and the ministers. So not all the ministers, not all the Levites and the Kohanim actually habitated or lived in Jerusalem around the Holy Temple. Or in this case, they put the tabernacle at Shiloh first, and then they built, and in the days of Solomon, he built the temple. So not all of them lived there. The way the game plan is that you'd have cities of Levites scattered around. They'd have a little bit of farmland so they can grow food for themselves, basically. But the important thing is that they were there to minister to the people, to serve the people, the local people that were there, whatever tribe, whosever territory, in which they habitated. And they would receive no portion. Hashem is their portion. So their portion was more spiritual as opposed to the other tribes that were more secular. They're the ones that would do the farming, they'd raise cattle. I believe Zebulun was the tribe that was the seafaring tribe that would go out and fish, and that's what they did. So depending on the tribe. So that's basically what this particular portion is about, Shoftim. So you can see that the leaders. Now, it also discusses kings. Let's save the important part for last. As a king, you are not above the law. You are bound by the law. You are so bound by the law as a king that it is required that you have 2 Torah scrolls. One for the library, and if your father happened to write one and there's extra one, you don't need to that. But you need, as a king, to write out a scroll, a Torah scroll, and carry it with you at all times so that you can refer back to that. Now think about that for a minute. As a king, you are the ultimate civil servant. You're not above the law. It says you don't have a bunch of horses in your stable, where you can go off and conquer a land on your own or bring the people back to Egypt. You don't have this humongous treasury where you can buy whatever you want. And you certainly don't have wives, scattered all over the place either. Okay? But you're supposed to be the humble spirit of Hashem, and that Torah is supposed to guide you. Now, who did you think of when I mentioned those three conditions? You thought of Solomon, who was arrogant enough to think that his wisdom would prevent him from succumbing to the dangers of all that wealth and power. And unfortunately, it did. He incurred massive debt in building the temple, so much so, and his sons were just maybe not raised right or whatever, but the one son just broke away, didn't want to incur the debt, said we're starting our own kingdom, forgot Torah. One golden calf wasn't enough, he had two of them at his palace. Such is the dangers of not adhering to or clinging to Torah. So I'll leave you at that. The real high holidays are coming up, and Shabbat Shalom, and looking forward to the high holidays.